Hey everyone, Matthew Evans here, and welcome back to another behind-the-scenes video from the Los Matatas Studios team. Today we're going to be talking about our recent Western action comedy short film, The Legend of Cactus Canyon. So, let's get right into it. So, where did the idea to make this come from? Well, the idea actually started with an actor that we've been working with a lot lately, Ryan Ayd.
So I actually posted a picture on Facebook of me in kind of some cowboy garb one day with a revolver, and I posted that picture and said, hey, does anybody want to make a Western? And Matthew commented on that post and said, hey, we're in. And I think it was Seriah's grandpa, also posted on it and said, hey, I'm super interested in that. And he was going to come into town and really wanted to shoot a Western.
I grew up in cowboy country in Oregon, and we had horses and rode them, and I love the West and I love Westerns, and so I have been happy to be in this film particularly.
We've made one Western in the past. That was our film Weathered that we made a couple of years ago for the 48-Hour Film Project, but hadn't really dipped into the genre since then, so figured it would be a good time to have some fun with the Western genre.
So with two of our favorite actors both voting that we create a Western, we decided to do that.
So just me posting on Facebook and saying, does anybody want to make a Western? Turned into what you saw, The Legend of Cactus Canyon.
Writing a comedy was a bit different than the last several projects we've made that have been a lot more serious in tone. So it was a fun break, but it was also a little bit of a challenge because writing a good story of any genre is difficult, and you want to make sure that it lands. And not only was it comedy, it was action comedy. Watched a couple YouTube breakdowns on Jackie Chan and the way that he does action comedy, and obviously we didn't have any legends like Jackie Chan, but it was helpful to have that as inspiration to work off of.
So for this film, we had assembled a great cast to portray these different characters.
So Pete McKay was a lot of fun, and he's a villain, but he's a comical villain. He's kind of a slimy guy. I think one of the biggest things that I brought to Pete McKay, and you'll see this in the film, is there's a lot of tongue action. He has his mouth open a lot, and he's doing a lot of kind of tongue action, and that's because I translated Pete McKay as like this slimy villain, but he's also been trekking through the desert for a really long time in search of this treasure, and so his lips are pretty dry. I didn't expect that my first villain would be a comedic villain, but it was a lot of fun to play him and a lot of fun to translate comedy and villainy at the same time.
I actually didn't know that I was going to play Clementine until like the day before or a couple days before. It was a pleasant surprise. They just kind of invited me on set to help with hair and makeup or whatever is needed, and I'm always just up for being on set no matter what, but then they threw this role at me and I was just pleasantly surprised at how exciting and how much fun she was gonna be. She just had so much sass, so much personality, and I've never really played a villain before. I have a bucket list, and a villain was not one of the ones I've crossed off yet. So it was a lot of fun to kind of play this spunky and kind of horrible character in a way, but she definitely seemed like she was a crowd favorite.
Creating the characters for Cactus Canyon was interesting because we were essentially writing characters for the actors that we had already involved in the project. We just had a fun time creating these really outlandishly cartoonish villains, and then adding our Paddington character, and then casting Matthew as that character was great.
And then there was Henry Sousa IV, which we decided to cast me in that role. It was a little bit of an unusual thing to step back into an acting role in addition to being co-director on this film with my wife Seriah. But it was a lot of fun to get to do that, and I'm really glad that I did, because the role of Henry Sousa IV was a lot of fun to play.
Costuming a Western on no budget is difficult. So did some quick research. The guys were pretty easy. Just like, wear some pants, wear a shirt, have suspenders and a vest, great. Caitlyn, I definitely wanted to lean into a more historical look for her costume. So looking up pictures of the time period, I knew that I wanted her to be in like a full-length skirt with a vest and a long sleeve shirt. So I was actually able to find all of the pieces of Caitlyn's costume in like one day in between like Savers and Goodwill. So cheap, and I think it looked pretty good.
I think my favorite part about the shooting days was probably the second day that we filmed. We got to do some more SFX makeup.
I love the
Intricate blood here.
makeup while you're getting makeup.
Yeah, this is amazing.
That's fantastic.
You
That's
said I
fantastic.
said 8 minutes, and I meant it.
I am
Some dirt.
getting makeup, and the makeup artist is getting makeup by a person who's also getting makeup. Just kidding.
We live in a great state for Westerns. You probably know that we're based in New Mexico, which is just kind of a classic state for Westerns and even Western filmmaking. But where were we going to make this one? Well, there's an area just north of Albuquerque, not too far from the small town of San Ysidro, called the White Ridge Bike Trails. That name may sound familiar to you because it was also where we filmed a portion of our sci-fi film Fault Line from this past spring. But this time with Cactus Canyon, we were actually going to hike out a lot further into this whole area, out to a slot canyon that was going to be the perfect location for the majority of the film to happen. The catch, of course, was that getting to this slot canyon was not going to be easy. It was going to require about 4 miles of hiking round trip to get out there, and some significant elevation gain as well.
How's it going?
It's going. I kind of thought it would be similar to these trails out behind us, kind of flat and a few rocks and a few obstacles and more or less of a stroll through the desert. But it turned out it was beautiful country with reds and browns and different colors. It seemed the first half a mile or so was pretty tame, but then we began to get into some extreme terrain that was challenging with a backpack, and up and down with steepness like this, and ball-bearing rocks and holes in the ground and crevices, and we broke onto a place that was, I don't know how people ride bicycles down or up that, but it was so steep that some people went down on their butts, and we got down through there and then had a flat, and then we had still about almost a mile to go.
It was enjoyable to get to hike out there, actually. The hike itself was hard, but the scenery was really beautiful. So getting to be out in the desert was just really nice. The weather was also pretty decent for having to hike 4 miles, right? 2 miles out, 2 miles back. It was very good weather for shooting outdoors in the sun. It doesn't look that steep from here, but it's pretty steep. We just came down that. A long ways to go.
After we got there, then we came to a much cooler section out of the sun with a tremendous slot canyons and excellent place to photograph, an excellent place to hang out. You could sleep in there. It was really a cool slot.
But we also had to bring all of our gear out with us, of course, since this was not just a hike, we were making a film. So we had camera gear, we had sound gear, we also had props. We had the whole big giant treasure chest that was holding the props that we needed for the film, that 2 of us had to carry at a time to get it out there. We had the shovel, you know, there was a fair amount of stuff to tote out into the desert, and then we had to do it on 2 different days.
The first time that we hiked in, we were carrying, you know, that chest that you see in the film, and it was full of equipment. You know, we're carrying cameras and bags and snacks and water and everything. And it was a pretty long hike, and it wasn't a simple hike either. It was up and down and through sand and rocks and salt flats. It was crazy. We actually ended up leaving the chest after the first shoot day and coming back like a month or so later to shoot the second time. And the second time that we hiked out, I hiked out by myself. I had my water bladder on my back, and I got a pretty nice sunburn. So the hiking in and out was definitely the most difficult. Actually, after the first shoot day, we ended up hiking back in pitch blackness. We shot until absolute sundown.
So we started walking out, and it was still a little bit of light. It was easy enough to see. It was almost about like the light that we have right now when we started walking out, but as you know, in the desert, with no moon was coming, so it was only starlight. And we probably walked for a good 45 minutes where we could still see to walk with ambient light. I'm pretty good at that, and then it's all of a sudden started to become something that I couldn't see how far it was going to be if I stepped down from a rock, and I couldn't keep my balance as well. Plus, my legs were torched. I felt at the end of the whole thing, equivalent to doing a Spartan race that I have done before, because the whole time you have a pack with many dozens of pounds of weight, and I had 2 guns with me, a bunch of ammo, and I did have a walking stick I was very glad for, and the one thing I wished I had was a headlamp.
This hike was not an easy one, but the cast and crew that we had pulled together for this project, they were willing to make the trek out into the desert and to this slot canyon to have a really great location for this Western, because for a Western, locations are important. Westerns are about the big, wide open expanses of the desert of the American Southwest. That's a really integral part of the genre. So even with us making kind of this, comedy sort of a thing, we still wanted to have a great location for a Western. So that's why it was worth hiking out, 4 miles each day of filming.
Day 1 wrapped. We're walking back, and it's pretty much almost dark.
We went out to film, and then it just took too long.
This is gonna turn into a found footage film.
We might never make it home. Mom, if you're watching this, switch my laundry. and I love you. I love you, Dad, too.
I think one of my favorite parts of filming was probably getting to ride a horse again. It's been several years, but for the scene where we worked with a horse, we were working with Jax, and Lauren DeBeers was just really wonderful in letting us borrow him for the film and getting his gear all ready, and so it was good to get to ride Jax behind the scenes.
Ryan was riding him for the scene. I was kind of walking along next to him with the camera, trying to get shots of Ryan on the horse. We knew the horse wasn't going to be in very much of the film, but basically the horse just started heading back toward the place, his stable, the house where he lived. So Ryan just was trying to turn the horse back around, but the horse was not having it, just kept going, blazing ahead to where he wanted to get back to his comfortable barn. So I just had to kind of try to run alongside next to them and get some shots of Ryan riding the horse as we moved through the desert.
Some of the challenges of shooting came down to having a time limit because we only had one day that we could shoot with Dolly Pop, our actor playing Job Mesner. And so at a certain point, we also ran into some issues with having to actively be choreographing on where we were filming. The location was really cool, but also very specific. We had these very narrow canyon walls and just a physical set to work with, which was both a pro and a con.
We had lots of places that we could hide and stage ourselves and position and make it as realistic as possible with the shooting scenes. And I'm a big shooter, so shooting scenes I'm trying to make as accurate as possible.
I'd have to say my favorite part of the shoot days was the gunplay. Just all being out there with revolvers and shooting at each other back and forth in these canyons was an absolute blast. I think my second favorite part was snack breaks. It was very hot and we were very tired, and these were very long shoots. We did 2 very, very long shoot days. And so just getting to take those breaks and lounge out on the rocks as Western villains was a whole lot of fun.
I think the most challenging part about playing Clementine was probably working with all of the firearms. As far as knowing the motion and how it feels to fire one, it definitely was hard to mimic. And I think it was definitely something that I focused on a lot. Another part that I think was challenging about playing Clementine was just staying in an accent. I just tend to slip into a British accent at times. And so with all the lines and the action and the stunts, I definitely caught myself tripping up on a few lines and really just staying in that southern accent. It was definitely a fun challenge, and definitely a newer accent that I've never done on camera before.
All right, boys. This has been fun, but I think we can all agree that this... No, did I do that again? I turned to British again! I think we can all agree that this is... Okay.
I gotta hand it to all the members of the cast. Everybody did their own stunts in this film, as is the norm with Los Matados Studios, and that was at times not the easiest thing to do. We had a couple of little, scrapes and cuts and stuff that happened in the kind of rough rocks of the canyon that we were filming in.
The stunts are always a love-hate thing for me. I always want to do my own stunts. I'm very motivated to do my own stunts. I like a bit of action, but also we don't have, a ton of crash pads. We don't have all kinds of padding that we have on. And a lot of times when we're doing stunt work, we're doing them in rocks, sharp rocks. And so, it's like, hey, you're gonna fall over right here, and you kind of clear a path with your shoe. You kind of kick some rocks aside and go, okay, that's where you're falling down. So there were definitely some difficult moments. We had some minor injuries, nothing too serious. A little bit of blood, but everyone was okay. So it was a blast. I love doing action sequences. I really liked working with Albert on coordinating our little fight scene with the shovel and his rifle. So it was a lot of fun. There was a little bit of pain involved, but I think it definitely paid off in the long run.
I've been in movies where you do the scene over and over, and it's the most boring and horrible thing in the world to do it 1,000,000 times. So this was like shooting things out of the air and all that. So it was fun, and we got it done. It was good. Fight scenes were good. The choreography was good. But the setting was so interesting because there were so many levels and bigger rocks, small rocks, narrow, wide, places to hide, places to jump down from. And all the other actors did a really good job of their parts. It was just fun.
I think my favorite part of shooting Cactus Canyon was getting to do all my own stunts. Every film that I've gotten to participate in, I've always just been thrilled with whatever new stunt. And I think my favorite moment on set was definitely smashing the guitar. I've never done that before, and I probably never will again in my life, but it definitely took a couple takes to get the break what we wanted. It was definitely a lot harder than I expected, and it didn't shatter like we wanted. It kind of just broke into a piece, and then we shoved it back and then pretended like it actually broke again, but it did the second time.
We didn't want to sacrifice a nice guitar for the movie. So I actually am part of a Buy Nothing group for my area, and I put in the group, hey, I need a cheap guitar for a film project. It's gonna be destroyed. And this one lady very kindly gave up a Dave & Buster's guitar. The guitar had the Dave & Buster's logo all over the front of the guitar body. And so we ended up just taping over the strings and spray painting it to look pretty close to the guitar that we have that we didn't want to smash. It was also then fun to record some of the guitar sounds that we needed on a separate day. Matthew and I just went into the backyard, and we had our nice guitar that hadn't been smashed, and we needed to have it sound like it was hitting someone over the shoulder or on the back of the head. So we ended up just taking a pillow and just thumping it with the guitar and having a lot of fun creating some of the Foley for the film as well.
So for me, the most memorable part of this shoot was getting to have my daughter be in this movie. That was a pretty proud moment as an actor and as a dad. To have my daughter get to have a little cameo in this film was a whole lot of fun, and it only took one take. She did absolutely incredible, and then my dog got to be in this film too, and he also did amazing. We got it in 1 or 2 takes, and so to be pursuing film and then to have it become a family affair was really, really cool. And a lot of fun as a dad.
So all in all, making the Legend of Cactus Canyon was a great experience. We had a fantastic team that was willing to work really hard, hike all the way out into the desert, do some crazy stunts, tote camera gear and film gear and props and everything. we just have such a great team with Los Matados Studios. So if you were on the team for The Legend of Cactus Canyon, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much for being a part of this. And I hope you had fun. I think we had a lot of fun making this, and I think it turned out pretty well.
All right, everyone, that's a wrap.
It was really neat being able to watch the film live with an audience and kind of see everyone's reactions, and it was really fun seeing my work just being brought to life.
I definitely have an acting bucket list, and doing a Western was on that bucket list. Playing a Western villain was on that bucket list. And so Cactus Canyon, you know, checked a lot of boxes for me. And then it premiered in a theater, you know, an almost sold out theater with almost 200 people. And I feel like of all the projects, this is the one that I now am really the most proud of. And I think I had the most fun not only shooting Cactus Canyon but watching it. It was a blast to watch other people see Cactus Canyon for the first time on the big screen, and so I think if anything, Cactus Canyon has kind of raised the bar for me when it comes to what I'm looking for when I work on a project. Is I want to walk away from it not only having a blast making it, but having a blast watching other people experience it for the first time.
So I think that about covers it for the making of The Legend of Cactus Canyon. I hope you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes look at this Western action comedy that we made recently.
I was not expecting people to love it as much as they do, but it turned out great and people love it, and we'd like to keep telling more stories that people love.
What is your favorite cactus?
I think what's the classic cactus? Is this the saguaro cactus that has the arms? That's definitely my favorite cactus.